we begin, I'd like to dedicate this video, heck, this entire channel to Quentin Reviews, Alpha J Show, Mr. Gigi, and Shrephyllis Productions. My life is a disaster right now, and I don't have anyone to talk to. I saw their extensive videos discussing topics they were passionate about, and whether or not it was a popular topic, there were still people willing to listen to them. This gave me hope that I might be able to discover people who will listen to me on YouTube. Without further ado, here's a video on one of the best movies ever written or produced, in my opinion. Oh, don't worry guys, the shark was just having a nightmare.
Bad dream?
Hi, my name's Calamity, and today we're going to be talking about my favorite film. Because it's so overlooked, I usually freeze up when someone asks me what it is. Deep Blue Sea is so obscure that the hashtag on Instagram has 300,000 posts, and I've only seen 3 that are related to the movie. All the other posts are just pictures of the ocean. Why do you have to be fancy and tag ocean pictures as Deep Blue Sea? Just tag it ocean. The majority of the pictures aren't even deep. Or blue. Anyway, I had this movie on my Netflix watch list about a year ago, and as a birthday present, I forced my dad to watch it with me, despite the fact that he hates horror movies. I fell in love with it and watched it 3 more times. I even downloaded a personal MP4 for my own content, and that's also the footage I'm going to be using for this video. That's why it's a higher quality than other people who share clips, which, by the way, are very few. What I'm going to do is give you a spoiler-free breakdown to spark your interest, a quick summarized review, and then I'm going to explain the entire movie to you and spoil the heck out of it. So, timescripts are in the description, but they do contain spoilers. Are you guys ready? No? Let's get started. The easiest way to find what a movie is about is to watch the trailer. That is, if the marketers aren't lying about the plot. That's how you know whether the movie is any good. It's if the advertisers are telling the truth about it. I hadn't seen the trailer for this movie after seeing it 4 times, so I noticed it when investing behind the scenes, and I thought, why not? We get a glimpse of all the characters, some fantastic sound bites from the movie that give us a sci-fi vibe, and then there's a narrator who explains the plot in like 2 sentences.
A team of specialists is working against the clock on an experiment to benefit mankind. But before they can save millions of lives, they'll have to find a way to save their own.
After that, we get shot after shot of all the crazy we're about to go into in this movie, with the music speeding quickly and your brain struggling to absorb the insane visuals rushing past your eyes, since nothing can prepare you for the movie you're about to witness. To be honest, when I'm extremely happy or excited, I start shaking. And after watching the trailer, I was shivering hard and feeling lightheaded, as if my heart were about to burst. It displays so much coolness and awesomeness that it got my blood pumping, and it got me so psyched for the movie to come out, I forgot that it had already been released, and that I'd already seen it. I'm trembling just writing about it. All this may seem great, but are the marketers lying? Do they just pull out of context shocks and overlay dramatic music? Or is the movie this cool? Well, dear viewer, it's a little bit of both. Looking at the trailer after knowing what happens, it pretty much uses all of the action sequences, but it also spoils a lot of the movie, so don't watch the trailer until you've seen my analysis. This trailer promises a lot of action, and the film does have it, but there's a catch. Let's talk about the plot. The story is described as follows. A scientist is trying to cure Alzheimer's disease by harvesting shark brain cells, which are immune to disease. The lab modifies the sharks so that they and their brains evolve, but as their brains grow, they develop super intelligence and turn against the scientists and lab workers. That's a pretty accurate description, though I feel it puts too much emphasis on the science part. It's not sci-fi, actually. It's more of a disaster film, following the survivors as the sharks attack. They're so smart that they don't actually attack. Instead, they meticulously map and carry out a strategic plan. The sharks only appear on screen to provide a minimal threat, and, of course, to eat people. The story follows the survivors as they try to escape their situation. This is the back half of the film, but it's basically them trying to figure out how to get to safety, so there isn't that much structure. The first half of the film is filled with science junk, so the main action doesn't begin until around 45 minutes in. I only know this because I had a friend watch it with me, and she fell asleep right before the action started. This film has a lot of dialogue, whether it's science explanations or the characters walking around and discussing as they try and figure out how to live. It can be a lot at times, but I can't count how many times a character says something plot related. So you can see what I mean earlier. There is action, but it comes after long periods of dialogue. This film is 20% science, 80% character dialogue, and 0% cliche. The avoidance of cliche is one of the film's strongest points. Several horror cliches are twisted and turned on their heads in this movie. The final girl, the love interest, the roles of black people, the jump scares. These tropes were tweaked or removed, which was unusual for the time period of 1999. Even the beginning of the film is a fake out. Cliche teenagers engaging in NSFW activities while Jaws-esque soundtrack plays and a shark tries to attack, only for the shark to be stopped by the real main characters, shifting the tone and indicating that this isn't going to be another copy and paste shark movie. To me, the only thing better than the plot setup is the characters. Characters are the main course of every movie I see. If the characters are good, I could watch them do laundry without getting bored, and Deep Blue Sea is no exception. The most interesting element is that if you ask me to describe all the characters, I'm sure I'd only be able to think of one or two traits that aren't shared with every other character in the story. It's not to say that each character represents a single trait, but that they're fairly similar. Many things, such as interests and goals, aren't really important in this movie. The only thing that unites or conflicts the characters is their attitude and what they believe in. Some are serious, while others are lighthearted. Some characters believe in helping others to survive, while others believe in only ensuring their own survival. That's all of their differences, but other than that, they're very similar characters. In a good way, I mean. They all enjoy their jobs, are extremely clever, act realistically, and have a strong will to live. The only thing better than characters are their interactions, which are undoubtedly amplified by conversation and facial expressions. You can identify which characters are friends, which characters have a past, and which characters are merely co-workers based solely on certain sentences. They have short conversations full of banter from a variety of personalities, with nuggets of information that will be shown later in the film. Surprisingly, none of it sounds dense or informational. Even through physical performance, characters' attitudes toward others can be detected. Take a look at this clip. To provide context, these characters are worried about someone. They all exhibit different expressions of mild alarm and confusion, but this guy right here is moving and looking more frantic and emotional than any other character here, suggesting that he cares about this individual a lot more than the others, which is supported by later discussion. There are so many instances where there's no conversation, but you can understand what they're feeling, and the other characters understand and express it too. I don't have much to say about the direction, since I don't pay attention to it unless it really jumps out. There are some basic scenery shots, and some YouTube commenter complains that the camera pans on faces too much, but I think the camera work is fine. I'd recognize whether it were extremely good or horrible. In terms of effects, I feel it's amazing. There are some instances that make my jaw drop due to how incredible they look. Firstly, the devs in most of the sharks are CGI. At the time, CGI was being used to make Toy Story 2. So making sharks that look like this required some dedication. There are a couple jankly movements with the ragdolls, but generally it's impressive. The filmmaker used actual sharks for authenticity in scenes like this and this. One of the performers was meant to play a character who would frequently swim with sharks, so he rehearsed with actual sharks in the Bahamas. But when it came time for him to do the real thing, he was terrified. The first day, I was in a cage, but the next day, they swam me 30 feet down. Then this guy yanks the breather off of me, and the water's churning with blood and guts and stuff. It was so terrifying that I don't want to remember it. His sacrifice was not in vain. It resulted in some fantastic visuals in the film. The most astonishing effect is the location itself, which confused me for a long time until I saw some behind-the-scenes footage. Look at this movie set piece. This is a lab, a floating island amidst the ocean. Of course, the views from above are all CGI, but there are later shots of the characters stepping on it and interacting with it. How could there be realistic shadows, excellent footing, and props if this scene were green screen? Surprisingly, no green screens were used for these shots. The director and team constructed a floating ocean island on top of the ocean tank that they used in the Titanic film. They spruced it up, and there was that. They actually demolished chunks of the islands for certain scenes to make it appear more realistic. They couldn't shoot a few shots, such as the facility in the storm, since storms are dangerous. Instead, they hired some incredible CGI artists to reconstruct the location. They then spent months researching how waves splash and how water rolls off surfaces, then rendered the liquid to make these magnificent shots. And to quote the behind-the-scenes narrator himself,
creating such high-impact mayhem was one of the biggest challenges for visual effects supervisor Jeffrey Oken. So Oken decided to create most of the squall inside the computer. From completely dry to soaking wet. This amazing attention to detail might not consciously register with many moviegoers. But the effects team knows quality is in the details.
now for my final, non-spoiler filled summary. To make a long story short, Deep Blue Sea is advertised as a shark film, but the sharks are only the catalyst for the storyline, which centers around the aftermath of a disaster, how different individuals react to the event, and their struggle to survive and reach safety. The film takes horror film cliches and subverts them in an excellent way to keep you on your toes. It contains outstanding and sometimes insanely realistic CGI for its age, as well as intelligent characters with complicated relationships and interactions. It's filled with plot-important dialogue that feels like actual conversations. Okay, spoilers ahead, so go watch Deep Blue Sea on HBO, Amazon, or if you're feeling brave, a 123 movie server. I'm going to explain the entire movie, but don't worry, it won't be boring since you'll be accompanied by my own funny jokes. It opens, as I stated previously, like a typical shark movie, with attractive teens on a boat doing you-know-what type of stuff, when one kid discovers a shark in the water. They all start panicking and get off the boat, but the shark is captured before it can have any tasty, beautiful fear. You won't get the reference right now, but you will later. The man who captured the shark is Carter, a shark wrangler played by Thomas Jane, the Punisher. There is a celebrity trope that the film distorts, but he wasn't famous at the time, so he doesn't count. This wrangler works for Aquatica, a facility that conducts scientific shark research. Where was the lab's boss as one of their experiments tried to escape? Susan, played by Saffron Burrows, Vicon, the girl with the glasses and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is at a business building, begging the CEO of an unknown company for a loan. Russell, the CEO, is played by Samuel L. Jackson. who has been in virtually every movie ever made. He was well known by 1999, so he serves as an example of the celebrity cliche.
200 million I've sunk in this company is due in great part to your research. But when the market opens Monday, despite my reputation, I don't like heights.
Susan is doing shark experiments in the hope of curing Alzheimer's disease. Because sharks don't get diseases, she believes that if their cells are grown large enough to coexist with human cells, they'll eradicate the disease cells.
What we're attempting to achieve here has never been done. We're this close to the reactivation of a human brain cell.
Russell wants to send another loan to Aquatica, but first he wants to see the results of the experiment, so Susan offers to take him to the lab. On the way there, she strikes up a conversation with Russell, noting how he survived a hiking avalanche. But he pushes the subject aside since he doesn't want to talk about it.
I read that article on you. The thing in the Himalayas.
Alps.
Right.
This is also the moment when we get to see the lab in all of its glory. They arrive and are greeted by one of the two assistant scientists. Janice, portrayed by Jacqueline McKenzie, offers Russell a tour of the facility. This is one of the few moments of the movie that sounds like exposition, but Janice makes a joke about how she's not a tour guide, so it's possible she's doing it on purpose.
Treat me like a tourist.
No, I hate tourists, and I've decided I'm going to like you.
We meet Carter again, talking to a background character, and this time we see... Oh my freaking gosh, that shark looks amazing. Look at that shark. I'm not sure if it's real, CGI, or robotic, but I don't care. I'm sorry, but does this film really come out in 1999? Anyways, Carter makes a few snarky remarks and a few swears, implying that he's a gruff, cynical character.
I bet. She got a damn license plate jammed in her mouth.
Russell starts his tour with Janice, but they stop when he sees a man swimming around with a shark. Russell tries to save him like the hero he is, but it turns out it's just Carter, who is so in tune with sharks that he's practically best friends with them. Remember the actor I mentioned before that was traumatized by the times where he had to swim with sharks? Yep, that was Carter. And these here are some of the scenes he did with them. Semi-off-screen, we're introduced to Brenda, played by Ada Turturro, one of the main characters in The Sopranos. She's the announcer, and a character Russell doesn't meet. She hangs out in this watchtower and broadcasts events, like when there's a storm, or when it's time to go home from work. What do you know? She's already doing it.
Hey, Ben, I'm picking up a nasty little bitch of a squall about 30 miles out. Over.
Copy that. We'll be all right.
Since the weekend's coming up, all of the non-important workers, the background characters, are leaving only the super smart science people. Russell is also introduced to the world's top scientist.
Dr. Jim Whitlock, the most brilliant man ever.
He's pissing into the wind. How brilliant can he be?
This is Janice's husband, Jim, the other assistant scientist. Jim is one of the least interesting characters in the film, but I went down a rabbit hole researching his actor, Stellan Skarsgård, and discovered something interesting. When I initially looked at his filmography, I saw that it was mostly Swedish films. Nordic nations represent, but I couldn't find anything American to mention. I went down to 2010 and noticed he played Moomin Papa in a Moomin movie, and I thought to myself, there we go, Tumblr loves Moomin things, right? That'll work. So I scroll up to leave, but then I saw the word Marvel. I take a step back and shift my eyes to his picture. No, it couldn't be. And then I gasped. He was the naked scientist who ran around Stonehenge in Thor 2. I was looking for iron and I stumbled across diamonds. I thought I was done there, but then I stopped again. Skarsgård. That's funny. Now I know two actors with that surname. Wait. I rushed to Google's search box and frantically typed in, "Who is Bill Skarsgård's father?" And it was, of course, him. 2017 Pennywise's daddy. Wait, no, not him. Him. Forget about discovering diamonds. I mined diamonds, forged a pickaxe, gathered obsidian, constructed another portal, battled piglins, and discovered netherite. Here I am, after one mind-blowing moment and a too long Minecraft analogy later. They were both horror movie actors. What a neat little factoid. See, I told you that joke would make sense eventually.
Beautiful fear.
While Russell continues his tour off screen, we, the audience, go on a journey ourselves to meet some more of the characters. First, we see Carter again, this time chatting with someone new. Scoggin, the island's engineer, is played by Michael Rapport, BB's cop ex-boyfriend on Friends, and Mr. Gigi's favorite actor to reference.
They got Michael Rappaport cosplay. This is reminiscent of Michael Rappaport from Next Friday.
After some cutesy banter, Scoggin responds in a playful way.
Don't get mad at me just because you can't shoot worth a shit.
Carter doesn't respond, but that statement will be used later. Carter's frustrated that he had to catch a shark and wonders why Scoggin failed to lock the shark pen. But he swears he didn't and tells Carter why he should believe him.
Who are you gonna trust? Me. That's who. You trust me. You know why? Because I'm trustworthy.
I quote that phrase all the time. And if you pause on this frame, you can see Scoggin's hand doing the Izzy, thing, and his leg is kicked back. If you're thinking, oh no, a gay stereotype, then you're wrong. It's not presented or hinted at in any way, but me being me, decided to smack him with a headcanon regardless. Scoggin goes to exit the scene, but Carter asks about the fences that Scoggin built because he's concerned about how the sharks escaped. Scoggin tells him that the fences are tall, and also drops a few hints.
How high are these fences off the water?
8 feet, give or take a centimeter?
Listen to that line again, but at a slower pace this time.
8 feet, give or take a centimeter?
Did you hear it? Anyway, let's move on. Now that we've finished the tour, we go to the core of the facility. We see Jem once again, and Susan rehearsing a procedure on a shark mannequin, which will be seen again later. For the first time, Russell has the opportunity to speak with Carter, but they butt heads pretty quickly.
We're on the water. Old cat and mouse thing, don't float.
When Russell inquires about Carter's job and background, Carter is dismissive and gives short replies. After Russell tries to force answers from him, Carter starts to ask his own questions.
How'd you make your money, man? You the first rich guy in history to squeak it clean?
You do understand my concern, right?
Russell says that he researched Carter and learned that he's a parolee, and that he's worried that his criminal background might jeopardize the experiment. But Carter says that he has no sinister motives, and he's just there to be there. Next, we take a quick glance at the resident chef, a man named Preach, which is short for preacher. He's religiously ambiguous. It's up for debate whether he's Christian, Catholic, or Jewish. He's played by LL Cool J, another famous person at the time, therefore he's another celebrity cliche. He doesn't say much, but he talks to his pet bird named Bird.
You got a big fat.
You know what, Bird? You were trying my last nerve. Don't make me drown your feathery ass.
Who was actually played by two birds because the first bird actor they hired couldn't fly. For fan service, we get some shark feeding time, and then Brenda tells Susan that there's an issue on the up top. Susan moves up to the top level, which seems strangely empty. It's dark and quiet, and she glances over the water's edge, wondering if something terrible has happened. Surprise! It was all a ploy. It's Susan's birthday, apparently, and it's the day before they were planning something big, which I'll get into later. The birthday narrative feels a little forced, but we do get to learn more about the characters. A few quick notions are thrown forth. Brenda is flirting, implying that she's longing for love.
You like the tunes, Every?
There'll be a joke about this later. While Carter, the lone wolf, is strolling around, hesitant to party.
Hey, Carter, come and join us. There's too much women on this next goddamn we're gonna have.
For the rest of the event, we join Russell as he visits various areas, chatting to characters. It's somewhat like Ash going around a Pokemon park, talking to the NPCs. Russell talks with Preach, who reveals more of Russell's very secret past, and delivers several humorous one-liners, solidifying his role as a comedic relief.
You're the guy that got caught in that avalanche, right?
Yeah, I'm the one.
Like black men don't have enough ways to get killed without climbing up some stupid-ass mountain in the middle of God's nowhere. Need to leave that to the white folks, brother.
Janice explains why they picked sharks for the experiment, and references Jim in a way that indicates that they're a husband and wife team. She goes on to say that they utilize natural substances to aid in the experiment.
I'm just amazed that we've come so far so fast without genetic tampering.
Genetic engineering to increase brain mass is in direct violation of the Harvard Genetics Compact, not to mention Chimera policy.
That will come into play later, hint hint. And Scoggin? He's just vibing on the dance floor like the legend he is. Strangely, as the party's going on, the party girl's nowhere to be found, standing alone someplace off screen. Carter enters and strikes up a conversation with her. There's a moment here where Carter says that he offered to take Susan on a date, hinting at some romantic past. These two were going to end up together in the movie, but test audience didn't like them together for some reason I haven't addressed yet, so they reshot another ending. Thank God for that too. You'll see why later, and I personally have a ship that works better. Carter tells Susan that when he was watching the shark feeding frenzy, he noticed that they were hunting in packs like dogs, which is something that sharks don't do. He also mentions how strong the shark he captured was, revealing the size of the boat that the shark attacked.
That Gen 1 attacked a 25-foot boat. Am I reading too much into that, too?
And as all these clues pile up, the audience gets suspicious. Susan says,
"Did you tell Franklin?"
And now we all know that Carter knows something that Susan knows that the others don't. Susan retaliates by threatening Carter as he tries to stay neutral.
Do you like your job?
Are you threatening me, Doc?
No. But if we don't pull off that test tomorrow, we're all on the street. Now, you're a good man, Carter. But with your background...
After he says, "Oh," I paused the movie, and he looked like that one blinking guy meme. My heart pounded again, thinking I'd be dealing with another Pennywise's dad scenario. But thankfully, that wasn't the case. After Susan storms off, Scoggin comes in briefly to mention that he raised the fences. After that, we leave the scene, and the audience is left to infer that this top secret info will be detrimental to the big day. Oh, and you still don't know what the big day is. That's because we don't find out until it's halfway through, so I'll explain it to you now. I'm not sure if it was because Russell came to inspect, or if it were pre-planned, but in the movie, tomorrow was the day Aquatica was going to take the shark brain cells and implant them in the human brain cells to test if it were powerful enough to cure diseases. Everything they've done has been leading up to this point, though we don't know how long they've been modifying sharks. All we know is that tomorrow is the final day, the day when they have perfected the calculations and will be able to complete the experiment. The day is arriving, and the first step is to capture the shark. Carter enters the cage to sedate the shark while everyone else watches, Scoggin on the mic giving him directions.
Okay, I'm approaching the tunnel.
Bingo, Elvis has left the building.
Suddenly, the sharks attack. They're unable to do so because the fences are elaborately designed to bend rather than break. The sharks attacking isn't unusual, but the fact that they're attacking together is. Even stranger, they're avoiding the sedative gun and swimming in unusual ways. The scientists are stunned, but they press on because they're determined to complete the experiment. When they think the worst is over, the sharks start deactivating the cameras and microphone, leaving Carter alone in the water. Everyone is worried now since they can't see what's going on. And pay attention here. Almost everyone is standing in silence except for Scoggin, who is desperately attempting to talk to Carter, becoming increasingly desperate each time.
Carter, do you copy? Carter, cut the crap, you're scaring everybody.
That shows character connection. Down below, Carter notices that the sharks are circling him, so he removes his breathing mask, causing the shark to mistake the breathing mask for him. Carter sedates the shark and transports it to the lab while it was distracted.
Did someone order the fish?
After everyone's finished gawking at the big boy mama shark, they begin the process. They check the shark's vitals and discover it's fast asleep, so all Susan needs to do now is inject the shark's brain with a needle. There's total silence for this monumental moment. Oh, don't worry guys, the shark was just having a nightmare.
Bad dreams?
Susan, on the other end, injects the shark, extracts its cells, and drips it over a slate coated in Alzheimer's. The lab is quiet once more as they stare at a screen, expecting for the dead neurons to resurrect.
Protein complex is interacting with the neurons. Neurons are becoming hyperosmotic. Membrane integrity is improving. They're firing! They're firing!
1 second, 2, 3,
Still firing.
5, 6.
6.560 seconds.
Happiness is in the air. Janice and Jim kiss. Russell laughs. Susan shows off.
Are you impressed?
Carter pets the shark. Scoggin watches Carter. We're 33 minutes in, and Aquatica has now cured Alzheimer's and potentially all other diseases. Everyone is delighted. The movie could end right here. What could possibly go wrong? Well, my dear viewer, you are about to see one of the coolest sequences in cinematic history. So consider this a warning for this scene, along with the following scenes that will be torturous, gory, and/or painful. You might think the most difficult to watch death is the bone-twisting trap in Saw 3, or that girl from Hereditary, or that time Michael Myers squished someone's head like a melon. But this scene is by far the most cringeworthy. Not because of the goriness, but because of the length, all the variables involved, and the fact that the character was conscious through all of it. While the celebration is still going on, Jim decides to take a quick smoke break. He moves closer to the shark to give it another look, but it's awoken from its sleep. I'm not sure how Jim's arm got that close to the shark's jaws unless he purposefully stuck it out there, but Jim gets the Georgie treatment. Carter goes to kill the shark, but Susan, scared of losing her research, returns the shark to the tank. When Janice and the others hurry to Jim's side, they tell Brenda to call the ocean paramedics.
Tower, we need paramedics to be back now.
They get him onto a stretcher and take him up, and on the way there, Russell uses his belt to tie around Jim's arm to stop the bleeding, displaying his avalanche survival skills. On the surface, the chaos of the storm triumphs. Look at this insane storm. It's entirely CGI, the same being used to make Toy Story 2. It astounds me to this day. The paramedics arrive in a helicopter carrying a hook to which Jim will be attached to. Carter runs to grab the hook, but is tossed around by the waves. I saw a YouTube commenter say something to the effect of, "This is basically Thomas Jane falling, the movie." And well, yeah, he does fall a lot in this film. The first time, he did fall. The safety harnesses were actually flapping off the water machine they had running since it was so strong. As the others return inside, the paramedics lift Jim to safety, but this line starts to malfunction just as Jim is about to be hoisted up. The paramedic does his best to try and hold the line and grab Jim, but as he reaches up to grab the stretcher, it drops back down and into the shark tank. Keep in mind that the hook is still attached to the bed. The line then gets dragged as the paramedics try to leave because the shark has grabbed the bed and is yanking it. Where, you asked? Straight into the lab. The helicopter is apparently juiced up on 100% vodka because when it hits the facility, everything explodes, including the watchtower, tanks, and everything on the top level of Aquatica. Oh yeah, Brenda and the two paramedics die. This isn't a kill count or anything, I just wanted to spoil your day if you were a Brenda stan. The explosion destroys the majority of the exits on the surface and rattles the chamber below, causing the Aquatica crew to get worried. But before they have time to process what happened, something is coming towards them from a distance.
Somebody, please, tell me what that is. Please.
Oh. You thought we were done with Jim? Nope. He's back. In the mouth of a shark. That's right. The shark that dragged the helicopter into the lab broke the line connecting it to Jim's bed and is now using him as a rock. The shark hurls Jim against the undersea lab's glass, which begins to crack. Back to the YouTube comment section, people were questioning why the characters were staring at the shattered glass instead of getting out of there. And I agree. Nonetheless, Jim is now smashed up to the glass, inhaling through an oxygen mask that is attached to his face. The glass eventually breaks, and the crew escape to a corridor as the water rushes in, and the scene ends with Carter falling over again. This entire section was dedicated to one character's death scene, which doesn't sound that bad until you really think about it. To summarize, Jim's arm was bitten off, scaring his wife, and he was lifted up by a helicopter while the wind and rain poured down on him. He was this close to survival when he was dropped 2 or 3 stories into an oceanic shark tank, with dirty water burning and infecting his exposed flesh. A 2-ton shark grabs him and drags him through the water before using him as a human projectile and slamming him into a thick glass screen. Remember, he's wearing an oxygen mask, so he's alive and conscious enough to experience everything. And he's forced to watch his friends and his co-workers' reactions, and his final thoughts are presumably that his body contributed to the death of all of them. Do you understand what I mean when I say harsh and difficult to watch? I was practically in tears the first time I saw it, and I thought I had toughened up since I didn't cry the next 2 times. But for this video, I had to watch it a 4th time. Just listen to the music. I'm sobbing right now as I type the script. Do you need a break? I need a break. You should just pause the video and get up and stretch if possible in your situation. This would be an ideal ad break, but because this is my first video, I haven't monetized it yet. But I swear if I ever do get monetized, I'll come back and place an ad break here. How was the break? Did you enjoy it? We've reached 4,623 words in this video and 3,098 words in this film breakdown, and we're just now getting to the meat of the movie. Starting Act 2, the facility fills with water, but the crew are able to seal the entrance into a non-flooded corridor. The scene then switches to Preach. Wait, Preach? Preach is the lab chef, therefore he wasn't present in the lab during the experiment. He's also trapped, although for the most part he's alone, with the exception of the bird. We'll keep switching viewpoints between the main Aquatica crew and Preach, but for now, we're focusing on the crew. Janice is in fits of grief over her spouse, and Alpha Ruffle steps in to figure a way out.
We gotta get topside, find some help. What?
He tries to unlock a door, but Carter, the other Alpha, finds water leaking through it. Carter and Susan exchange a few glances, probably because of the secret, and we go back to Preach, walking the corridors once more. The facility is overworked, and the undersea foundation is beginning to detach from the surface half. What does this mean for the characters? That will be revealed later. Preach begins to, preach, and also spits a few bars.
This is a lesson about the drinking. Let's just say I've learned it. No need to get all carried away, showing me your vengeful side. I know your wrath, Lord.
With that rap beat, LL could produce a great retrofitted single.
This is a lesson about the drinking. Let's just say I've learned it. No need to get all carried away, showing me your vengeful side. I know your wrath.
We quickly transition from Preach to the crew, so here's some back and forth. Carter examines the map and devises a plan, with Russell once again taking control and attempting to push Carter out of the spotlight.
Climb down to level 3. We get to the wet entry. We take the sub topside, 2 at a time. We go down to get up.
All right, let's move. Come on.
Preach tries to travel up one of the stairways, but it's also flooded. The bird flees immediately, but it takes Preach a second to notice. The team hears pounding at the door, but it's too loud for it to be a human. The doorway floods, Carter falls again, and they escape to another room. Preach, on the other hand, is going back through the hallways in search of his bird. We're now staying with the central characters for a longer sequence. Russell gets angry at Carter, believing he had something to do with the accident due to his criminal background, but Carter swears it was the shark's fault. Russell is skeptical that the sharks were intelligent enough to target them with only the natural product they've been using, and Susan reveals the big secret.
Their brains weren't large enough to harvest sufficient amounts of the protein complex. So we violated the Harvard Compact.
The sharks were growing fast enough to carry out the experiment, so she and Jim used illegal gene manipulation to produce the cells they needed. Just to note, it was illegal, and no one else on the crew knew except Carter, who didn't tell anyone and remained neutral. What are the actions to this lie revealed scene?
You stupid bitch.
Janice is right to be upset, because that vital information could have saved her husband's life. But Susan adds that while her husband, and presumably Brenda, died, the research could save millions of lives. Carter makes a strange analogy and whines about how his romantic feelings were hurt. Boo-hoo.
Exactly how many sticks of dynamite would you have to set off in your ears before your head cleared?
You wouldn't understand.
I wouldn't, huh? Dumb old Carter wouldn't understand that you used us. That you used me.
He also explains what this all means. The sharks now have a brain, thoughts, and free will, as well as goals. And their current goal is to kill the crew and escape.
These sharks are thinking hard and clear. So here's the riddle. What does an 8,000-pound Mako shark with a brain the size of a flathead V8 engine and no natural predators think about?
Russell takes charge for the third time, but Carter isn't beta enough to listen to another alpha. Scoggin stands up and chooses to follow Carter. I wonder why. After what I presume is a joke that didn't land, Preach finds out that there's a shark in the halls with him. The chef successfully swims away from a 2-ton shark, how is that even possible, and returns to his kitchen. Unfortunately for him, the shark followed him in, and Preach prays to the god of some unclear faith. Back to the main crew, Scoggin drops some information on how the fences operate, which...
It's okay, the fence on the ocean side is titanium, and it gives so it works just like a net.
will come back later. And they make it to the main pool, where the submarine is. But who cares? Preach found his bird, which almost caused him to fall in the water. He tries to save it, but the shark ordered the chicken. Let's take a brief detour so you don't remember that bat joke. There's this strange sound cue that blares whenever the sharks do something, just like when the bird was eaten. I discovered that this sound cue isn't added on its own. It's embedded inside the soundtrack, composed by Trevor Rabin, known for such masterpieces as Kangaroo Jack and G-Force. I rarely listen to movie soundtracks, especially if they aren't musicals, unless the music is top tier. For example, I love to listen to the soundtracks of Centaur World, Steven Universe, Spider-Man 3, and my favorite horror movie soundtrack, Final Destination 4. I bring up that last one to gloat about how fantastic the soundtrack is, despite the fact that the movie is the worst. I enjoy the music since it's almost entirely metal, but it still expresses every emotion perfectly. The main sequence is an absolute banger, and it was created by Brian Tyler, who wrote the soundtrack for Avengers 2. I thought I recalled a song from the soundtrack to Final Destination 4 that had those trumpets blasting like in this movie. And sure enough, track number 4, Nailed, 51 seconds in, had a sound identical to that of Deep Blue Sea. I didn't bring this up to accuse anybody of stealing. I just wanted to bring up the soundtrack since I'm a music fanatic, and I love the Final Destination 4 soundtrack so much that I was copyrighted for using one of its songs in one of my videos. I just think it's worth pointing out that after Jim's arm was bitten off, the song on the soundtrack is called Armageddon. You know how I feel about that death. And as I saw that title, I began to physically ache, since my body was holding in laughter while also holding in tears. I couldn't decide whether to be upset or laugh at the joke. To refresh your memory, the main crew has just arrived in the submarine room, and Preach outswam a shark to get to the kitchen, where his bird was eaten. Preach falls into the water, and as the shark approaches, he takes an axe and seeks refugees in an oven. Back in the sub room, the main crew discover that the sub has been damaged, preventing them from escaping. Janice is still angry with Susan and makes a snarky comment, and Susan provides another character connection.
Isn't that the old Aquatica spirit, Dr. Susie? Just dive in. You could go first, to lead by example.
My best friend, Janice.
Russell takes over once more, explaining that the swimming out through the sub pool may be the only way to survive.
We're going to have to swim out of here.
Back in the kitchen, the shark, either by mistake or on purpose, turns on the gas oven. Preach actually breaks his way up and out of the oven with the axe he acquired. And while the shark is caught in the oven, he bravely jumps over it and ignites a flame from a safe distance away. So, Preach throws a lighter at the gas oven and causes the shark to explode, just like in Child's Play 1, where Chucky opened the gas stove and the guy shot that gun and exploded. Back in the pool room, Russell is looking at the edge of the submarine pool, and Carter says that he probably shouldn't be, too close to that. Russell also says that the wetsuits will keep him all nice and warm, so everyone puts one on except for Carter because he's an alpha and he doesn't listen to anyone else. Scoggin starts to panic, and he's like dropping cool shark facts, and he's like, sharks can swim so much faster than humans, and he's throwing things, but he's actually throwing stuff that's in front of a door. The door is an escape hatch that they can use to climb up, but the only issue is if they open it, the water from the pool room will flood. Scoggin wants to open the door, and Susan does not want to open the door, and they start fighting and arguing, and honestly, the scene is really funny. I recommend you go look it up after the video is over. I'm very sad I can't show it. Russell notices this, and he's like, hey, stop it, everyone, alright? When I was caught in that avalanche, we had 8 survivors, but then we all started fighting with each other, and only 6 of us survived. And you think that it was the ice that killed those 2 people, but actually it's because they were fighting and they killed each other. So now I'm gonna come up with a plan, and we are going to get out of here. And the speech is like really, really good, and I'm still very frustrated that I cannot play it for you, but you know, hopefully this will suffice. So he's talking, and everything's great. And finally, he says, we're gonna come up with a plan. And luckily now, the segment that was copyrighted is over, so back to the original speech.
So we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to pull together, and we're gonna find a way to get out of here. First, we're gonna seal off this.
Yes, as Carter warned,
Wouldn't get that close if I were you.
Russell stood too close to the edge of the pool, and the sharks were able to grab him. According to the YouTube comment section, this was voted the most shocking death in a movie in 1999. This is because Russell, or Samuel L. Jackson, was shown to be a baddie survival guy and a celebrity, which usually they survive to the end of their movie. So for him to be one of the second major death scenes was a little bit of a change. Act 2 concludes with a nice glimpse of 2 sharks decapitating Russell, as well as too many face reaction shots. That scene is why, anytime I hear a speech or monologue like that in real life, I always expect an accident to occur before it's over. Starting right away in Act 3, Scoggin is the first to speak up.
Just ate him, Christ.
He finally loses his sanity after being driven over the edge by the sight, rolling up into a ball like a baby and muttering to himself.
I'm not moving from here. Someone will come. They'll come and they'll get us and we'll be fine.
Carter, who is now full-time alpha, notices this and attempts to calm him down. He asks Scoggin what will happen if the underwater section of the facility completely separates from the surface, and the vision he describes is horrific.
The support struts go first. Their tolerance is about 7 tons. So they're gonna crack like toothpicks. Then the walls are gonna buckle. They can't handle more than 10 tons of pressure.
Strangely, the incentive for them to continue is to avoid being crushed by 7 tons of water. And even stranger, it works. This motivates the crew, and they gather and open the maintenance stair door, allowing the pool water to spill in, just as Scoggin predicted. As the big, strong men stay to seal the door, the girls begin to climb. But why the gender thing? It's like the boys in 5th grade having to pick up the chairs. They climb up while the explosion debris falls from the sky, which wasn't featured in the behind-the-scenes footage, but whether it's real or CGI, looks fantastic. When a shark tries to break through the door, Carter makes a sacrifice. If the door opens, water and the sharks will enter, but because they're going up 2 levels, he can unlock one of the doors on level 1 and the water will flow out instead of continuing up. Scoggin then compliments him strangely and warns him to be careful.
You're big. Real big.
What's that?
The size of your brass ball. Be careful.
Aww, isn't that sweet? When the sharks burst in, Carter rushes up to the door and tries to push it open with all of his power. He even takes out a... Wait a minute, is that a leg knife? That's awesome! Carter pushes with all of his force, and like the mighty Samson, he successfully opens the door. Listen to how the brass sections swell. That's what I call a soundtrack. The explosion has an aftershock that causes the facility to shake and the ladder to break, and Janice is left swimming with the sharks as a result. Carter, Mr. Muscleman himself, tries to reach her while she cries for help, similar to Nora from Final Destination 2.
I don't want to die! I don't want to die!
Carter is unable to grip her and she slips into the sea below. The shark doesn't think it's enough to get a free meal, and he taunts the remaining crew by showing off its kill. Act 3 concludes with Susan, Scoggin, and Carter hanging on a broken ladder. Act 4 begins with some terrible news. Because the ladder broke midway between the two levels, they can't reach the second level door. When the team has given up hope, something unexpected happens. Pounding on the door continues. Everyone starts to prepare for the worst, but this time, it's not a shark. It's Preach, who creates a makeshift rope to pull everyone up. They eventually catch up in the hallway.
Good thing you guys came to this side. The other side is underwater.
You didn't exactly plan.
Yeah, it wasn't like the plan. Are you all that made it?
Preach learns that everyone else has died. Preach tells everyone that the stairwells has flooded. And Scoggin angers the ambiguous god.
Give us a goddamn break, kid!
He always answers. Sometimes the answer you get isn't the answer you want.
They all re-examine the map, and Scoggin thinks that if they switch on an emergency generator, the maintenance drain will activate and suck out all the water in the emergency hatch room. Carter is skeptical, but Scoggin reassures him.
Who are you gonna trust? That's right. You trust me.
That phrase is so perfectly placed given the context. That's pure character resonance right there.
Who are you gonna trust? Trust me.
They stop in one of the bedrooms for supplies, Brenda's room, where they obtain a flashlight and food. And Scoggin looks for something with batteries, implying she had something special she used when she was lonely that ran on them.
Where would a girl keep her thing? Hey, what's the matter with you?
Preach? I'm wondering the same thing. Also, even deceased characters get callbacks. Brenda is flirting, implying that she's longing for love. Carter tends to his wounds from the previous scene and speaks with Susan.
Skin's starting to hemorrhage. The sharks smell of blood.
Susan attempts to apologize for threatening Carter, but Carter isn't a simp and dismisses her. Preach gives an impromptu physics lecture, and he and Scoggin have a moment.
Einstein's theory of relativity. Grab hold of a hot pan, a second can seem like an hour. Put your hands on a hot woman, an hour can seem like a second. It's all relative.
I spent 4 years at Caltech, and that's the best physics explanation I've ever heard.
The main boys leave to turn on the generator, but not before Scoggin and Preach have an epic comic relief bro moment.
Preach?
What?
Would you zip me up, please?
On the way there, Scoggin asks questions about Carter and Susan's relationship. And this is when I started to ship them. There was a lot of evidence to back it up before, but I think examining your friend's love life kinda crosses a boundary of friendship.
got one. There's 2 sharks left. And there's you in the dock doing a little bathroom love.
They got pill foods wrong, these guys.
When they get to the generator room, the main lab where everything began, Carter insists on turning on the generators by himself and coming back later for Scoggin. Scoggin may have objected to that idea, but Carter left before he had the chance to respond.
Stay here. Be back before you know it.
After that, there are 3 scenes overlaid with each other. One with Scoggin and Carter, one with Susan, and one with Preach. Scoggin and Carter's scene happened first in the film, but I'll explain it to you later since I need it for a transition. Now, we go to Susan, who left Preach alone to go get her research back, swimming to the main room where she rehearsed in the first act. She discovers her research in a waterproof bag, which she then kisses. What the heck, lady? This got disgusting salt water on it. Anyway, she noticed a dark shadow approaching her, one with a fin. When does this movie ever not do a callback? We see Jem once again, and Susan rehearsing a procedure on a shark mannequin, which will be seen again later. I'm not complaining though. Susan is then chased by a real shark, and she scrambled onto a table, where she plays the worst game of the floor is lava ever. She goes up onto a metal shelf, desperately attempting to receive her research, but is unsuccessful. Trying to figure out how to get away from the shark, she has an idea while looking up at a light source above her. Susan then strips. Wait, no. For a good reason though. She uses her clothes as a barrier between her body and the metal shelf as she's about to zap the shark. Susan jabs the shark with the light cable, causing an electrifying spasm that kills it. She solemnly reflects on the sacrifice she had to make to survive, as her research was fried in the process. Alone in Brenda's room, Preach discovers a camera and chooses to record the most essential information he needs to share with the world, just in case he doesn't make it out alive.
I love the pulpit and I love the bottom. I did my best to be a good husband, a father. I came up wanting. So what do I have to say to you? What mark do I have to leave behind? We will begin with the perfect omelet, which is made with 2 eggs, not 3. Amateurs often add milk for density. This is a mistake.
Fans of comic relief, eat your heart out. We have now returned to the main boys, just after Carter left Scoggin alone to switch on the generators as a lone wolf. He swims through a whole slew of floating debris to reach generators, wires, equipment, and other items in the underwater lab. That's Jim, our boy. This upsets me and adds another layer to his death. His body didn't even serve as the shark's goal of nutrition. The shark didn't even offer him the dignity of being eaten. The shark didn't want that. The shark only wanted to use him as a projectile. Carter is understandably disturbed by this, and he rushes up to an air bubble to scream. Scoggin appears soon after, equally horrified by the Jim corpse floating around.
What is it? We're alright! What the fuck? Okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Scoggin expresses his heartbreak, believing Carter had abandoned him.
I thought you were coming back for me.
Carter tells him that there was debris blocking the generator and asks for his assistance in moving it. Scoggin gladly agrees and assures Carter that they'll get through this mess together.
We do everything right together.
Right
together. Together. Scoggin is so pure, and these two are so close to being a couple that it actually hurts. I mainly wanted to point out that in the swimming scene, Scoggin speaks normally, while Carter stutters and shivers from the cold water. Yes, Russell stated that the wetsuits protect you from being cold, and because Carter didn't put on the wetsuit and Scoggin did, that's why Carter is cold. Russell tells everyone to put on wetsuits so they don't get cold in the water, but Carter, being an alpha, refuses to listen to another alpha and doesn't put one on. These specific details are reaching Marvel levels of intricate. Canadian lad, where are you at, man? The two swim down and turn the lever at the same time, activating the generators. Scoggin gives a thumbs up, and Carter gives an okay sign. And these two could be the best matching profile pictures. Hashtag couple goals, am I right? Anyway, back to the movie. Carter's smiles quickly change to a frown as he notices a dark presence behind Scoggin. A shark. Scoggin notices the shift in expression, but it's too late by the time he turns around. Scoggin is suplexed by the shark and slammed against the generator. The shark then shakes him around like a rag doll, breaking him in two, his foot twitching at the camera. If you frequently look at horror movie clips, you could find a comment from me saying that I hate when dead bodies twitch in horror movies. And if you pay attention to my Instagram posts, you might notice that I put a Silent Toe song over this moment to make an overused joke. I make jokes to distract myself from the pain of this scene. Carter manages to outswim the shark and return to the second floor, where Preach is waiting. Just watch the scene raw, without any commentary. Can you see what I mean when I say these actors have mastered every aspect of acting, even down to the facial expressions? Carter is clearly afraid and shocked after seeing Scoggin's demise. You can see Preach's awareness that his newfound stronger bond with Scoggin has died, along with Scoggin himself, as he realizes that just one person emerged out of that water. This is filmmaking at its best. Carter and Preach run to where Susan said she was going, and lo and behold, there she is, the shark killer herself. She asks where Scoggin is, and all Carter can do is drop his head down, without words. Again, Carter and Scoggin's relationship in the film is coded and played as good co-workers' relationship at the least, and a friendship at the best. But let's take another tangent so you can see how this would have been like if it were kind of a love story. Basically, how I headcanon it. Scoggin had always had a crush on Carter, as seen by his one-liners in Act 1. He's an obvious flirt. Carter laughs it off as though it's just a joke amongst friends, unaware of the attraction. Scoggin must have noticed Carter leaving the party to talk to Susan and followed him, which is why he appears right after Susan had left. When Carter is in danger, Scoggin is concerned about his safety in a manner that his other friends are not, and Scoggin is fixated on Carter as everyone else is celebrating the disease's cure. Carter leaves once Susan is proved to be a liar, and Scoggin follows, though it's unclear whether he wanted to feel safe or ensure Carter's safety. Carter is a lone wolf, and he's even distant with his friends, but when he finds Scoggin distressed, he attempts to soothe them down, though be it in an unconventional way. When the crew opens the door, Carter gives Scoggin the side-eye, as if checking to see if he was okay. This is the first evidence of reciprocated feelings. Scoggin, still reeling from the tragedy, pays Carter an odd compliment, and warns him to be careful. And I believe it was at this point that Carter realized Scoggin was feeling something more towards him, but he didn't have time to approach it since he needed to open the door. Carter leaves Scoggin up above when he dives down into the danger zone when the two travel to the lab to fix the generators. Scoggin sees this as abandonment, but I believe Carter intended to keep Scoggin safe in his lone wolf, drive the ones I love away approach. When Scoggin, traumatized yet again, freaks out, Carter calms him down once more. And when Scoggin even mentions the possibility that Carter abandoned him, Carter immediately shuts down that thought with an explanation. Scoggin attempts to bring on that light-hearted attitude that he used to have because there's a ray of hope for survival with the generators, and Carter genuinely responds. We know he's not that much of a wordsmith.
You got full sentences. Usually he just kind of nods.
And he could have just dismissed him with a simple yes or no. But instead, he answered by repeating the last half of the statement. Right together. At that point, I think Carter realized Scoggin loved him, and while he may have had conflicting sentiments about whether he loved him back due to homophobia, devotion to Susan, or doubting his sexuality, I believe he started to like Scoggin back. They descend underwater and switch on the generator, each of them rising in hope. But then, Carter notices it. He lets out a soundless scream as he realizes something horrible is going to happen. The shark is approaching them, but more importantly, Scoggin. I didn't see this until the fourth rewatch, but Carter actually reaches out to Scoggin and attempts to save him, but the shark is too fast. Carter escapes the shark and is too shaken up to say anything to Preach. And when Susan asks about Scoggin, assuming that he might be in another room, Carter drops his head extremely low. I think he shed a few tears off screen here. To think, Scoggin loved Carter, and Carter dismissed his feelings for him as friendship. Yet, Scoggin still cared about him regardless of how Carter felt. When Scoggin needed help, Carter stepped in, making him reconsider his feelings for him. Carter discovers that Scoggin was in love with him, and their relationship strengthened. But by the time Carter realized he felt the same way for Scoggin, he died before he could tell him that he loved him too. I mean, that's how I interpreted the dynamic. It's not like I'm in Scoggin's situation right now, and let's just get back to the movie. We're starting Act 5. Carter finds the will to continue being an alpha, and has prepared materials for a plan. Now that the generators have been switched on, there's an empty escape hatch that they can, escape through. They have life jackets that Preach believes are for them, but Carter has an old trick up his sleeve. To trick the sharks, just like he did in Act 1. They're going to attach the jackets to fire extinguishers. The extinguishers bubble, like breathing, and the jackets float, tricking the sharks into thinking they're breathing humans.
Sharks are attracted to churning water, bright colors. These extinguishers should be a distraction.
He also says that if they wear the life jackets, they'll die.
What about us? Vest will bring up too fast. Your lungs will pop like a balloon.
You weren't the sunny kid in your class, were you?
Susan isn't sure she can hold her breath for that long, so Carter offers a brief swim lesson.
There's nothing to it. Remember, exhale on the way up. Get the hell out of the water.
Carter turns on the faucet, and the room fills with water as Preach does what he does best. Preach.
Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, because I carry a big stick, and I'm the meanest motherfucker in the valley. 2 sharks down, Lord. 1 demon fish to go. Can I get an amen? Amen. I can't hear you. Come on, let's go. I hear you. Give me an amen. Stay with the Lord. Amen.
Okay, hold on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Such wise words. Although I'm not sure if swearing will please the ambiguous god. Carter, being the alpha, lets the others go first. And I just wanted to mention that these shots of the shark ripping into the life jackets are real. Though I'm not sure if they're life jackets that they're ripping into. It turns out that swearing while praying is a major no-no, because Preach gets snatched by a shark as the group swims up to the surface. For some unexplained reason, the shark doesn't swallow Preach right away, and he escapes by slashing the shark's eye with an ambiguous cross, a move straight out of 47 meters down uncaged. What? I like shark movies. Preach tries to swim up, but his leg is bleeding. Thankfully, Alpha Carter is nearby to help him get onto the rubble that was once Aquatica. Carter stares at the fences as Preach is being tended to and resting off screen. Carter studies the easily broken barriers, which Scoggin said were made of steel.
Son of a bitch.
What?
Those fences are titanium underneath, but on top they're just plain steel.
I don't know about you, but I think he lied.
Raise those fences like I asked.
Took care of it. Let's go get a beer.
It's obvious now what the Sharks wanted all along and orchestrated this entire plan for. Freedom.
About the deep blue sea.
But super smart sharks in the wild would lead to the total annihilation of the marine ecosystem. Carter, the resourceful survivalist, devises the perfect plan. He tells Susan that he's going to shoot the shark with a dynamite-filled harpoon. When it hits the shark, Susan will attach the end of the harpoon to a random car battery he found, causing the shark to explode. Carter performs some impressive parkour and goes to shoot the shark, but he's unable to do it. Why?
You can't shoot worth a shit.
Carter doesn't respond, but that statement will be used later. Carter says it's because the shark's too far away, but I think Scoggin was right. Susan decides to step in and help. Before we go on, I'd like to go on one last tangent. Susan. At first, I hated Susan. As I previously stated, she was meant to end up with Carter, but the test audience hated her as much as I did. It bothered me because she was always like, ooh, the hydraulics, the toaster. Oops, I'm sorry. She was always like, my research, and cared more about that than her own friends. She did illegal things, betrayed her colleagues, and then abandoned them for it, and I hated her until my dad told me it's all about perspective. He highlighted that this was research that cured Alzheimer's, and had the potential to cure all diseases if properly developed. If that study was made public, it could save millions of lives, just as she says in the movie.
I didn't want this to happen, but with this research, we could practically wipe out degenerative brain disease. Think of the generations that will be saved.
She's not exaggerating. To be serious for a moment, I'm speaking as someone who knows someone dealing with a disease. My dad has cancer. This sickness has changed my closest friend, who was usually cheerful and compassionate and who watched this movie with me, into a bitter, short-tempered, always lashing out husk of his former self. He's never physically hurt me, but he's now prone to rants and words that have broken me down and stayed with me, all because he was in so much pain. He's punished and restricted me from doing things that are hindering the progress I'm trying to accomplish in life. And it's made me, my mom, and my dad miserable. Consider that there are millions of others in the same situation, or millions of others who've lost loved ones too soon, or millions of others who are scared for their lives. Would you give up your friends and yourself to cure all of those things? This adds a new element of morality to the situation. Think about all of this. The other characters are angry at Susan for her research, and they should be angry about being lied to, but they're only concerned with their own survival, while the research could lead to the survival of millions. When Susan apologizes, I believe she's sincerely sorry, and it must be difficult for her to watch her friends suffer as she chooses millions of strangers over people she knows, especially with the added burden of a family member dying from the sickness she's trying to cure. It was mentioned at the beginning of the movie, and I didn't think it was necessary to mention it before, but it perfectly explains her motivations.
Have you ever known anyone with Alzheimer's?
Well, No.
By the end, all my father could do was ask why my mother wasn't at home. And each time I told him she was dead, I had to watch him take that loss like a car wreck. 200,000 men and women develop Alzheimer's each year. What if you could end all that suffering with a single pill?
I still don't like her as a character, but I don't hate her anymore. There's a degree of understanding that wasn't present on the first watch. That was a lot of serious stuff, huh? Sorry. Let's relax and get back to the movie and Susan. Speaking of Susan, where is she these days? Dead? Oh, yeah. She died in a cruel twist of fate. It's not like they rewrote the ending since the crowds hated her so much. Oh no. Susan cut herself because Carter was having a difficulty aiming at the shark. She sacrificed herself by deciding to offer the shark her body, using the blood from the cut as bait. Carter sees this and dives into the water to save her. What a simp. Susan gets out of the water after the shark arrives to grab its free meal. Everything is well until she falls back into the water due to the second case of defective ladders in this film. I'm not sure if it were the best decision for Carter to give up his possibly only opportunity of saving everyone from a highly intelligent shark, but it doesn't matter since Susan is quickly chomped up, and we're now in the final act, Act 6. Carter performs the twisty jump on shark maneuver he performed in Act 1 with some of the janky CGI movements I mentioned earlier, and rides the shark. Preacher awakens from his nap and continues Carter's original plan. Despite his bleeding leg, he musters the strength to stand and aim the harpoon at the shark as Carter enjoys a thrilling ride at Universal Studios.
All right, on. Shoot it, this is for Scoggins.
Preach dedicates the shot to his late friend Scoggin, but accidentally shoots his crush. Carter. The harpoon did wind up in the shark, but Carter is still attached to it. He insists Preach blow up the shark, whether it means his death or not, in yet another act of sacrifice. Preach is hesitant, but the shark breaks through the gate at the last second, allowing Carter to pull his leg free, and the shark explodes in such a way that it would make the Jaws explosion embarrassed of itself. Sure how it happened, but Carter survived the blast, and Preach is delighted to see him come out of the water. As the nightmare comes to an end, the music rises. The two survivors are resting on a piece of wreckage, and the conversation is back to being Act 1-esque.
45-foot shark. You hit me. Nice.
Preach mentions that there were 3 sharks. He killed one, Susan killed one, and they killed one. He wants to be sure that there were only 3. Oh boy, here it comes. The little boy Jason jump scare at the end of the movie. What? What happened to the shark?
Here comes the next shift.
And there's a boat with the Aquatica background character crew coming to help him? No way. It's not possible.
Oh, take me back to the ghetto.
Amen.
Yep. This film has the will to not pull a last-minute fake out. That takes guts. Or lack thereof. With that, the credits begin to roll, with a custom rap by LL playing us out.
Man-made terror, hungry jaws of death. Paddle across my depths, I'll pause your breath. I torture you, sink down 40.
Deep Blue Sea was the name. What are your thoughts? Is it just me reading too much into things? Or does this review/breakdown do it justice in terms of how brilliant it is? I'm not sure how long this video will be, but we're now at 9,746 words, and I know 3,000 words takes about 20 minutes to read. There's apparently a sequel to Deep Blue Sea called Deep Blue Sea 2, but as far as I can tell, it's unrelated to the first film and has none of the original cast members. I'm somewhat upset that they created another one, because although Deep Blue Sea doesn't have much of a reputation, I feel like the first film was nearly flawless, and it shouldn't be ruined by another film with the same title. I just have to state that I'll never see Deep Blue Sea 2, even if it is better than the first, since it was created in 2018. And even if it did something different like the original, this was a time period where horror movies were already breaking the norm. So, when every movie is different, no movie is. That automatically makes it not as remarkable as Deep Blue Sea, since they were breaking cliches all the way back in 1999. No one else was doing that at the time. And I mean, look at this cast. Let me guess. We have the hot, baddie final girl because her blouse is unbuttoned a little. Carter's ripoff. He looks like a survivalist, but he's a red herring and will be one of the first ones dead. The real survivalist, who looks like Thor from Ghost. The drug dealer looking dude who's gonna have a breakdown and looks like he's already having one. Jacksepticeye's twin that's in denial about the whole situation. Michael B. Jordan, aged 20 years, the super refined, classy, chill under pressure guy. True Jackson, VPE, all grown up, whose only character trait is friend/supporting character. And the young, smart technology intro nerd. I mean, that outfit is just something that a stock image college kid would wear. Hi, Calamity from the future. I couldn't just leave those as guesses, so I read the entire wiki for Deep Blue Sea 2, and my guesses were pretty close. Anyhow, now that I've read the entire plot, I know what happens, and it's eerily similar to the original. I'm a little mad. I'm relieved that this film is so obscure that the characters don't even have their own Wikipedia pages. I'm still not watching it, but if somebody cares enough to share the death scenes on YouTube, I might watch them. I'm thinking of making a follow-up video comparing the two films. Also, I heard there's a third film that just came out a few years ago. I'm not even gonna say anything, I am too upset. I just want to leave this video on a high note. I was going to end this with a message about how there's no one in the fandom and how I was going to start it, but AO3, freaking AO3 beat me to it. There are 9 fanfictions about Deep Blue Sea, 3 Scoggin x Carter, 1 Carter x Reader, 2 fandom crossovers, 2 Deep Blue Sea retold with OCs, and 1 Carter x Shark? I read through them, and they're of questionable quality. No offense. And I have my own idea to write a Deep Blue Sea fanfiction, since I write fanfics all the time on my Marvel Tumblr. Though, you know, they're all Marvel related. If you're interested, I might create a whole new Tumblr for it. More on that in the comment section. As for fan art, there's none. Absolutely none. I've looked, and I can't find any except for mine. Look at my art. Truly look at it. Do you want my art to be the face of the Deep Blue Sea fandom? Please, join the fandom and create better art than I do, because we want you to be the face of the Deep Blue Sea fandom. That's all there is to this video. As you may have guessed, this is my first video on this channel. This is a sibling project to my gaming channel, the Calamity Crew. I wanted to create a channel, either gaming or discussion. I developed the gaming one, but then I thought, hey, why don't I do both? So I made this one soon after. That's why they sound similar, Calamity Crew, Calamity Reviews. So I'm not trying to rip off Quentin Reviews, the name just made sense logically. If you came from my first channel hoping to see some Leo stuff, then please leave, since he's not here. This channel is all mine. Leo only edits and speaks in my gaming videos. By the way, we've reached 11,357 words. This script took me 6 days of full writing to complete, and God knows how long it's going to take me to edit this without Leo. I hope you enjoyed watching, and please remember to like and subscribe. Bye.
You know, this whole crap with this cancel culture and the... Shut up!